I didn't really know how to start this video off because it isn't really much of one. It's just more of a little note, a little reminder. For those unaware, Desmond Amofa, also known as Etika, was a pretty famous YouTuber known for his content primarily on Nintendo and other game-related topics. If you didn't watch him, many people know him for his Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Reaction or his Undertale Genocide playthrough, but live streams that got him in the sort of mainstream spotlight. Sadly, on June 19th, 2019, he would sadly commit suicide after a very prolonged, very public battle with his mental health. Now, this isn't going to be a discussion on what happened word for word. It's already been covered in depth. It's been 6 years at this point. There's nothing more to be said besides bringing more awareness to mental health as a whole, especially in the spirit of the internet, content creators, parasocialness, whatever gets public nowadays. I was a very big fan of Etika when he was around. I probably shouldn't have been at my very young age, but he was someone I looked up to both in terms of editing, but also his very charismatic nature. If anyone remembers him or watched any clips of him, you probably remember his very chill attitude. He had a vibe all around and knew how to really lift the mood. Essentially, he was born to be a content creator, a streamer. I watched most of his videos when they came out. I tried being there for his streams, although he always streamed late at night, which 13-year-old me was not doing. But in 2024, I decided to do a retrospective on Etika, something akin to watching a dead actor's filmography like Robin Williams. I don't know why. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I thought I could find something by watching everything he made, but it was a journey that lasted throughout the entire year and somewhere into the beginning of 2025. I never got to watch all of his streams, and being able to at this point in time was really sort of eye-lifting in terms of the type of person he was and the type of content he created, because a lot of his content, the things he says, how entertaining he was, all of that's flawless. Obviously, they're dated because of the time when they were made, but you can still see Etika's charisma, skill shining through in almost every stream. And I know for a fact if he was still alive today, he'd take over the streaming world, and it's a very big shame he died the year before streaming sort of went crazy, took off because of COVID and and VTubers, crazy and all that. Not to say he pioneered all that streaming stuff, but he was doing pretty good. The one stream I'll always remember Etika for was his Doki Doki Literature Club one. It was one of the few streams I watched live, and I think it serves one of the best streams for who Etika is or was. Etika, most of all, was a storyteller. He loved saying shit, and he loved expressing shit. He wouldn't hesitate to randomly tell a story time in the middle of a playthrough, and he wouldn't hesitate to, express how it felt no matter if people didn't care. People would call it stalling all the time, but, looking back at it now, all the stalling was just sort of him being incredibly personal. And obviously back then we were complaining because we just wanted to see him play the game, we wanted to see his reaction and stuff, but now it's nice to see someone talking about themselves. I know he probably shouldn't have been a role model to a 13-year-old me. He was an image of me when I was 13 years old. I probably shouldn't have had his influence on me, but it was both for good and both for bad. Consequence of the internet and that type of stuff. Being able to be yourself, knowing to express how you feel, those are a bunch of traits I felt that I learned from him, watching his streams and watching his videos. Back then, I was young. It didn't really hit me. I just enjoyed watching him because he was entertaining. He had all the reactions. He did the funny things. He started screaming. He started cursing. Oh my god. But now that I'm older, now that I'm 20, oh my god. I can really respect and admire the type of person he wanted to be for himself and others. The lessons he taught, the lessons he wanted to share. Sure, he fucked around and sometimes did a lot of stupid shit, both on stream and off camera, but he knew when to call the breaks occasionally. He had some, he had some morals in him. He knew when to tell kids like me to get off the stream because it was adult time, and he knew he couldn't exactly get rid of his younger viewers because it's the freaking internet, and he grew up on the internet during 4chan and all that stuff, so he knows that people will not listen to a single thing you say. He always made it a point to never idolize people. He even said not to idolize him because no matter how great you think he was, you never truly know someone, both on stream, off stream, etc. And I've always stuck that sort of comment with me. Despite the shit I say about Etika or any other content creator or person I admire, I don't know who they are truly. I can still admire them for the traits I like about them, but you never truly know someone. I never met him before. I never got a chance to say hi or anything of the sort, so I don't know what he's like in person. It could just be a lie for all I know. And that goes for me as well. I'm not a perfect fucking person. I'm probably not who you think I am, and reinforcing that, especially in today's world, is incredibly important. He was spreading that shit long before COVID and sort of increased that parasocialism. And despite that whole "don't idolize" quote, Etika saying that made me have more respect for him. He has flaws and faults and stuff, and that he did was questionable, stealing bikes, which I learned back in 2024. I didn't know that back then, but a part of me expected something bad because he always reinforced that you never truly know someone. No one's perfect. They all have these flaws and stuff, so never try to idolize or put them on a pedestal. There you go, put them on a pedestal. You never know someone. So like you can still admire them and such, but don't go thinking they're like a prodigy or something. Not prodigy, saint. That's saint's the better word. And like I said earlier, he was saying all that shit about not idolizing people all those years back, and you still see people like being like, don't idolize people long after he's gone, you know. But then they go and say, oh, well, you can idolize this content creator instead because they're totally good, creating another cycle. Some things never change. It's bittersweet hearing him say stuff like, you know, when he does this or when he does that, knowing that he's never gonna do it, and he'll never get a chance to because of things that happened. He'll never finish Persona 5. He'll never get to finish Deltarune. He'll never get to see what happens after Chapter 1. He'll never get to see the Persona games poured over to the Switch, which would be the reason he'd actually finish Persona 5. He'll never get to see Steve in Smash Bros. Or Sans. He'll never get to finish JoJo. He'll never get to see the ending of Attack on Titan. Life will go on, and it has, for years. I didn't really think about making this video until recently. There was a pretty popular clip on TikTok on Etika's Smash Ultimate reaction, and people didn't recognize him. And I think that was the point. It really hit me how long it's been. You know, he died before COVID, the event which changed the world and landscape of like online physical space, especially online. So much stuff happened in the past 5 years in that 2020 spirit that has fundamentally changed the internet as a whole and how we interact and stuff like that, which is a whole different breed of topic that I unfortunately can't get into. You know, he died before streaming really blew up to the level it is now, and you had people asking who he was, who this random guy was. And it was the first time I felt actually incredibly old and also incredibly sad. You could show this guy to anyone back then, and even if they didn't know Nintendo or anything gaming related and such, they would still know who he is based on, you know, the clips he used to have. But at that moment, I felt like an old person, you know, finally blinking and seeing things for how they were and realizing how much has changed. It's been over 5 years. Of course things have changed. Of course people don't remember him. He's dead. There's nothing left, you know, for him to really do spread on to make people remember him. I'm sorry if this sounds cringe or too philosophical. I tend to do that a lot on my channel, but I played and finished Persona 2 a couple years ago. It's really good, by the way. I recommend it. And one of the quotes said by the character has always stuck with me, and it's Maya saying, "Worse than alone, exiled. Worse than exiled, dead. Worse than dead, forgotten." That quote has always stayed in my mind regarding people's legacy, what they're known for after they're gone, after there's nothing more for them to do. You know, they're resting now. There isn't much for them to do anymore. I treat it as a responsibility, you know, a personal responsibility, not a job or anything of the sorts, to remember those that aren't with us anymore. You know, sometimes, of course, getting a bit too philosophical, sometimes think of how many gravestones of people who don't have anyone that know them. You know, left is just a body. Nothing more, nothing less. Shit's depressing. And one thing I've loved is seeing people still remember the ones they love and appreciate, even if they're no longer around, by either making art of them, making videos of them, or just talking about them in general. With the 6th year of Etika's passing, I thought it'd be best to make a video just talking about him, you know, letting people know who he was, or reminding people who he was. He's someone we sadly lost way too soon, and I mean that in every way possible. He should have been there to experience like many of the shit that happened in the 2020s with regards to streaming and VTubing stuff. Some of the stuff that happened was practically made for him, but you know, that sadly isn't the case anymore. This video is just a reminder, and you know, a message to try to be there for people. You never know what someone's going through. Sometimes noticeable, sometimes not. What may come up as obvious in retrospect may not look that obvious, you know. Sometimes our eyes aren't that open, and it's sometimes not entirely our fault. Even for yourself, sometimes the things you may be going through, you may not think is that serious until it's too late, and it's not something anyone should go through, including you. The situation that Etika went through shouldn't be something anyone else should go through. But this world's shitty, so of course it still happens no matter what. Even in the 2020s, where it's gotten a lot worse with the internet and content creation in general, streaming your lives out to the public. But it's a topic for another day. But you know, it doesn't mean as we But it doesn't mean we as individuals can't do anything about it. I'm not the best at giving therapeutic speeches and shit, but that's the best I got. So take care of yourselves, and of course, as usual, please have yourself a damn good one. But also, what the hell is going off my lighting? This is actually abysmal.